Hello and welcome to Music Musing. My name is Craig Seibert, and today I will be joined by my brother George Seibert. We love to talk about music. We're passionate about it, and it's a big part of our lives. Every once in a while we have these conversations, and we thought we'd just like to share those with you. So if you love music, sit back and enjoy this podcast. Okay, welcome back to episode 5 of Music Musing. I'm joined today with my brother George Seibert. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Today we're going to touch on the ABCs of music. We'll kind of explain that in a second. We just want to kind of step aside and talk about a few deaths in the music industry that's kind of affected us heavily. The obvious one being Malcolm Young. We are both AC/DC aficionados. We love it. We love the music, love the sound, love the original singer. And Brian Johnson's not so bad, but Bon Scott's certainly where our heart is. But
given the option, yes.
Yeah, exactly. But Malcolm Young passed away and of dementia, complications to dementia, and a big part of my life as a guitar player. Huge part of my life as a guitar player. I had mentioned before that Slash was kind of where I went with on my tone after listening to the Appetite album. But when it came down to it, I had been listening to AC/DC for a while, and solos are nice, but I was more of a rhythm player my entire life, and to have somebody like him there and to listen to his rolling rhythms and the songs like Jailbreak and For Those About to Rock and stuff, just his passing was a big effect on me on seeing where my history was in guitar.
It was totally, I rarely do, usually I'll text you if something like, if Tom Petty, when he passed and so on and so forth. But I knew instantaneously it was not a good day, when Malcolm passed, because I remember, we went to the flea market, when we were teenagers, and you bought the album box set, something in chain. I think it was AC/DC in Chains. It actually had chains on the album box.
Yeah, I did.
And I just thought that was so cool. But that's some of my earliest memories. Mom's influence, of ELO and Blondie and so on and so forth, like as far as that style. But as far as like pure rock and roll, that's when I heard AC/DC, that's what I wanted to listen to. Mm-hmm. That style. I didn't even, I was probably, I said mid-teens, maybe early teens, and I didn't want to listen to anything. I didn't like, and that will lead into what our debate will be about today. But
true.
I didn't want to. The way that music, the way that rhythm, the way that sound made me feel is how I want to feel when I listen to music.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And Malcolm brought a lot of that to the band. Angus was obviously the show, and he was an amazing,
oh, absolutely,
lead player, and
absolutely,
did some of the rhythms too. But when you listen to songs like Thunderstruck, which I know is opening with Angus playing, when that rhythm starts, that driving rhythm, just listen to it, pick it up and listen to it, pick it up. Thunderstruck, and just listen to it once the rhythm starts, because it's driving.
And it's giving me goosebumps right now because I'm about to say it. The song that I posted in remembrance was "It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll." I don't think of all of AC/DC's songs, I think that song exploits Malcolm's sound.
Yeah,
the way that song starts. I think that's, as far as rhythm guitar and rock and roll rhythm, I think that song is a signature feather in his cap, I guess. That song signifies AC/DC to me. And there's, all of AC/DC, is based on that We've even joked in the past, and don't lie, we've joked that it all sounds alike pretty much.
It does.
And then we laugh and we argue about that. Well, it all it work. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And they did 50 years worth of, dang, well, maybe not 50 years, 40 years solid of, dang.
Yeah.
That never that the one true thing was that driving rhythm. So, and
yeah,
but you're right. I mean, and 70s superstars such as, like you said, David Cassidy passing away recently, that were part of that Teen Idol group. I can't speak for you. I was never much of a Partridge Family fan, but as far as musical influence, I mean, they were in the 70s. That was bubblegum pop. I mean, he was big. He was a teen idol, and that, and I don't know if you want to stay with that or if you wanted to move to Mel Tillis prowess.
Well, I mean, the only thing I'll say about Cassidy again is I'll just kind of echo what you said. I wasn't huge in the Partridge Family. I watched a couple episodes here and there, and I respect, but we've talked about that before. We respect where it is in the genre.
Sure.
When you look at that pop idol music from the 70s, Cassidy was, when he broke off from the Partridge Family, was just huge. People, millions of kids had his poster on the wall. It's
oh yeah, Tiger Beat and whatever. I mean,
exactly. Nobody puts posters of Malcolm Young on their wall. They just listen to the music and get angry. But Cassidy was definitely somebody in the genre that I respect, because he created almost that idea of a single teen idol, being admired and raised up.
Yeah, and I think it almost bridged a gap. I mean, there may have been because that was, by that time, I mean, it was, sweaty velvet Elvis. So, I mean, that his teen idol prowess had kind of gone. So, I mean, it was almost like I'd hate to say a second coming of Elvis, not music quality, but popularity anyway, if nothing else.
I could go with that. And, you touched on the other one, and we'll kind of move on to that one because it fits with what we're talking about today. But, Mel Tillis passing away was, it was kind of a shadow of the two for us. I mean, obviously people that were big fans of his, saw it as a pretty big hit, but it was kind of shadowed by the two bigger ones for us. And
sure.
I guess we'll just jump right in. The ABCs of music is anything but country, and I know we're probably going to lose a lot of people listening to us after this one.
You know what? I don't think so. I think people, I mean, in recent years, I think there's, I mean, in the 90s, that was, I mean, I my buddies, and they all fell into that line dancing craze, and to his credit, Garth Brooks is as big, he's probably bigger than Elvis. I mean, as far as sales and popularity. And I mean, this is, and again, I guess I'll preface my whole thing. This is our opinion. And I know people, there are people, fans that are fans of rock and fans of country. I'm just, this is I don't want to say a touchy subject, but this gets into the core of music for me, this debate. So
yeah, but I don't even know if it's much of a debate, because what you said is true. It's our opinion. We grew up, I guess that's a good place to start. When we say anything but country, we're not country fans. We are not current country fans. So this is where I think the debate part's going to come in, because
right.
If you want to look back, like at what they considered country music years and years ago, when you're talking about, Willie Nelson and, even going further back, Hank Williams Sr. and Chet Atkins, even kind of bleeding over into
Mel Tillis.
Playing that Mel Tillis, Willie Nelson, Merle Haggard, a lot of those older country rock type bands. I don't want to go, Leonard Skinner, but when you look at yeah, when you look at old country like Cash, Johnny Cash was originally considered a country musician.
Absolutely.
I think one of the biggest things that I see about country music, both then and today, and done wrong today, and this is kind of why I personally don't like country music nowadays, is if you listen to old stuff like, Gene Autry or Hank Williams Sr. or those guys that were, playing that type of music, you had two things. You had a southern draw to your voice, and you had a steel slide guitar somewhere in the song.
Sure.
And obviously there's other trademarks with, kind of a twangy guitar and
a fiddle or a banjo.
Fiddle or banjo, and we'll talk about kind of the break off of bluegrass here in a minute too, but it seems like that was the formula for it, and it wasn't necessarily something that they set out to do, but it's what they grew up with. And I'll bring that bluegrass back in now because that's kind of what it spawned off of. There were a lot of bands in the backwoods playing,
picking and grinning,
playing fiddle, playing banjo, playing mandolin, and sticking that stuff because that's what they had to play with.
Right.
And that kind of evolved into that sound. And when you put steel lap guitar in it, you're kind of got the whole, that's the what you put into it to get country music out of it.
Right. There's a tear in my beer. Right. That was the formula. And see, when I was forming my musical chops, it was mid 80s on. So there was, and what I heard, even at that time, I wanted no part of. Like I said, when I heard Angus Young and Malcolm Young and slightly later than that, Metallica, Anthrax, and so on and so forth. And then, Hank Williams Jr. was big in the 80s, and Bo Cephas. And that was, that I remember that being, huge. And that is kind of where I want to, pick my scab, so to speak, is that's why I never got into it, because of and people always, if you listen to old country, it was never about the steel guitar or the twang or in the voice or whatever you want to call it. It was about what I always saw as almost a disrespect. And I say that with a, sort of tongue in cheek, like there was, when the early things I remember was all my rowdy friends are coming over tonight, that they milked into the Monday Night Football song or whatever. And from, Bo Cephas or Hank Williams Jr., whichever you'd like. That has always stuck with me about country music. It almost seemed like they were not trying, like the subject matter, and the obvious exceptions, but it seemed what was popularized was the, and I don't know how to was the ignorant side. I don't know, and that sounds bad. Was the arrogant side of country, like we can make a song about anything and it's popular, because the only thing they made popular was songs about nothing. And not to say rock and roll has more substance, you know what I mean? I never liked the subject matter from early on, and I never gave, and therefore, like I've even said that about rock. If I don't like what I hear to begin with, I very rarely go back and explore and try to find something that I like. And there have been country songs and artists that have impressed me. I think Dwight Yoakam is an incredibly talented singer, songwriter, performer. I don't like, and some of his songs I don't like, but I think Garth Brooks is impressive as far as an entertainer, singer, songwriter, performer. Dolly Parton, Reba McEntire, and Alan Jackson, they're incredibly talented singer, songwriter, performers in the country music genre. And George Strait is another one. But there are and it's, we sort of touched on like gimmicks, like rock bands that have gimmicks. Well, it's seeming like, and it's gotten worse since the 80s, that if it's a gimmick or if it's something, let's make a song. I mean, Toby Keith had a song about a red Solo cup, and it was hugely popular. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, yes, it's a long way to the top. If you want to rock and roll, isn't exactly, lyric gold, but at the same time, it was telling a story about, it's, I guess the subject matter is what always bothered me, and the delivery was almost like thumbing their nose at like popular music or rock music. It was like, we can make a song about, she thinks my tractor's sexy, and it's hugely popular.
Well, and I think you're the one of the big things you touched on, which is kind of where we see eye to eye, and is subject matter. And let's kind of step back to where we were. We grew up in a farming town.
Sure.
And we were, when we were really young, we moved away from that farming town when I think I was 12. You would have been
10.
Close to 10 at some point.
Yeah.
But when we grew up in that town, we were kind of listening to what our parents were listening to. We were listening to ELO, to Dr. Hook. We were listening to ABBA, to
Blondie, right.
the Eagles, and
Sure.
all that stuff. And so I think we were kind of sheltered from that late 70s version of country at the time. So when we moved from there, we moved to Tampa, and that was, culture shock for us both,
Sure.
Physically and mentally. And at that point, I was actually kind of starting to get into rap and hip hop and stuff at that time because of where we were.
Sure.
From there, we moved to Land O'Lakes, Florida, which is another country
Back
town.
to
I mean,
Bumpkinville, right?
There was a mud bog, place where you went and did mudding with your trucks, and there was a lot of that attitude out there. So, and that would have been
Mid
to late
80s.
80s.
Yeah.
So right when that Garth Brooks boom was coming in, and Travis Tritt and all those guys were kind of starting to get big. So I think you touched on the subject matter, and when you look back at the old stuff, when I actually put on an old country station just to kind of listen to what it was, and honestly the subject matter is not too much different. I was kind of hoping that my affinity for the old country was still it was founded in something, and I think it is. I think I'm still a little bit off of your mark on country. Mine's, my disdain for country is more for current than it is for, the old stuff.
Sure.
But it was the same. I mean, Patsy Cline, singing about love and loving a country guy, and like you said, Hank Williams talking about, mud bogging and in the bogs and shooting things and hunting and driving my big truck. And you're right, it's subject matter. I think it's just because, I mean, obviously we don't relate to it because it's not what we grew up and loved in our lives, but it seems like it's in your face. It's just thrown at you.
No, and I think that's where you were going with that is exactly right. It's not that I dislike the artists but it's we can't relate to the subject matter.
Yeah.
And that's always been my thing. Everybody says, well, you should listen to old country. I hear that 1,000 times. Every time I say I don't like country music, people tell me, well, you'd like old country.
Yeah, I tell you the same thing most of the time.
Well, yeah. And it's a valid argument, but from, and you said Patsy Cline. I think Crazy, although it's been covered multiple times by multiple artists, I think Patsy Cline's version is untouchable. I think her voice and the arrangement and the simplicity of that song is stunning. And I get, party music or whatever, because, and I'll make the direct, I will draw a straight black line with a ruler from Hank Williams Jr. to Andrew WK that there's
I don't believe you just did that.
absolutely zero substance, just all about partying, all about, but
True.
Andrew WK, I mean, and that guy's smart. If you've seen any kind of interviews, any kind of what the guy does, children's TV shows and whatever. I mean, the guy's really intelligent, but he really makes it a point to, his music doesn't really have a point. His music is just go fast, loud, in your face. I mean, his first hit was Party Hard.
You're right.
And basically Hank Williams Jr.'s biggest hit, to start with, was All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Over Tonight. Basically, exactly. Party Hard.
Uh-huh.
And that's just, and the difference is I love Andrew WK and I can't stand Hank Williams Jr.
but if you look at the lifestyles though that they're talking about,
right?
When you listen to country music, they're talking about their lifestyle and putting it directly in your face.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're saying, I'm driving a truck, I've got a dog, I go hunting, right directly in your face. And
right.
You can't think of too many rock songs that do that.
That alienate.
They tell some cheesy, they tell some cheesy stories.
Right.
Like, you and I had a discussion about Cherry Pie the other day. And,
yeah.
That song is just, I listened to the words just to see what it was, and there's nothing there. But there's not too many rock bands that, say, this is my lifestyle. There are some out there,
Motley
but
Crue.
Not as many as country. They don't, say I party and I'm playing
Motley Crue. Motley Crue.
I got spikes on my wrist. I'm gonna, like Motley Crue type music.
Yeah.
And they do that, but yeah, I think that's one of the big hangups for me. And recently it's gotten, from, like you said, probably from the mid '90s up, it's just gotten worse. It's gotten almost to where every single song that I hear on the country music tells me about what their lifestyle is and why they love it.
Right. And see, that's what I came down to, or what I got to, was, in thinking about this and researching this, and I could give you a list of mile longs of songs why I dislike country music, because that's not the point. The thing is, the thing that I always come back to is, it seems like rock people can dabble in country, but country people are country people, musically. Like, it's not like, and we talked about exceptions in the past, even on this podcast, about, like Kid Rock, Aaron Lewis, Hootie, Darius Rucker, that there are exceptions to that, but very few. There are a lot more country stars that go to rock, Shania Twain, or rock or pop, that want that recognition or respect, and it seems like they have to leave country music to gain that respect. Garth Brooks, he was basically the first country rock star. I don't know how else to put it, because he's notorious for his stage show. He's 1,000 miles an hour. He's, hooked up to cables, flying out over the crowd, singing and stuff. But you very rarely see rock artists, and I'll use this term carefully, dumbing it down to make a country album. And it's funny, we went on a road trip, the wife and I, a couple days ago, and we were coming back, and we were talking about, I forget what we were talking. We were stuck in traffic, and we were talking about music, and she said something about rock stars and country, and I said, look up Aaron Lewis. She's like, and she listens to mainly contemporary Christian radio, but she listens to country and, whatever I'm listening to, whether she wants to or not. But she looked up Aaron Lewis, and God's honest truth, I had never listened to anything Aaron Lewis of Stained had done in country. And it was, My Grandpa's Gun was like the first one that comes up on YouTube when you search Aaron Lewis or something like that. And if somebody bet me $1,000 that was Aaron Lewis singing, I would have lost $1,000.
Yeah,
and
that's crazy.
And I said, okay, go from that song. I said, now listen to Mud Shovel. Download, or, you know, bring up Mud Shovel from Stained, and it's night and day.
Yeah, it is.
Darius Rucker is a little bit, you know, hard, but again, there are people, and even what was that? I meant to look it up, and it just came back to my mind, and I didn't look it up. Garth Brooks even had an alter ego, in the early 2000s, Chris Gaines, where he's trying, you know, I don't know if that was if that was trying to be funny, or if he was trying to get out of country, or if he was trying to make something. I don't know what that was all about, but that's what I was getting to. And I know I'm rambling a bit, but it seems like the country genre, to get any kind of credibility or recognition, have to leave that genre, where rock people can go to country and it's like, you know, oh, he's a pretty talented artist because he made a country album.
That's what I was just gonna say. It seems like they're almost praised for it. Oh,
right.
You left that, you know, as they saw it, as you left that dumb genre and went into the real music, and people will say that.
Right.
Oh, you started writing country? Wow, that's an impressive move from just rock, just standard rock, and then moving into something, you know, elegant like country.
Exactly.
So I wanted to tie a couple things into it real quick because,
sure,
you know, I'd mentioned earlier about bluegrass kind of being the formation of the early stuff, like the early, you know, Hank Williams Sr. and
right,
Waylon Jennings, George Jones, Willie Nelson, Buck Owens type stuff. You know, when you listen to those musicians, you can hear a lot of that bluegrass sound coming across with banjos and stuff. But you know, Southern rock was out of left field. You know, stuff like Leonard Skinner still had that country sound, but they weren't trying to make it rock. It kind of accidentally turned into that. And I'll let you talk about it in a second, but I do want to mention that, you know, there's obviously a part in a song where basically in Sweet Home Alabama where he says, you know, Neil Young put her down and we don't need him around anyhow. And, you know, how much more blatant could you get to say, hey, we don't care about rock, we care about ourselves type stuff.
Right.
But what's your take on those two other outside genres, one kind of forming it and the other one kind of either breaking off or being a different sound?
I think bluegrass is impressive.
Yeah. I agree.
I think there's a lot going on, and it's a lost art. It's almost, I relate it to kind of rockabilly as an offshoot. Like very few bands could pull off that offshoot, I guess, if you will. Like rockabilly is kind of almost country, almost rock, almost, you know, unclassifiable, but bluegrass is very, very specific. I mean,
true.
I think it's a very specific genre, and I mean, even not being a fan, there's a level of respect for bluegrass that's almost untouchable too. I mean, I would even defend bluegrass because of the artistry and the dedication it takes to stay with something like that. Like I said, if you can write a song about your tractor being sexy and make money at it, bluegrass is almost shunned for its authenticity is the way I feel about bluegrass. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
I think it's a very, very specific genre offshoot of country music that came out of the Deep South. And what you said about Leonard Skinner, when you're mocking folk music, Neil Young has done a lot of things, had done a lot of things, from Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young to solo work. And when a band references something like that, and I consider like Molly Hatchet and even 38 Special.
38 Special, yeah.
In fact, the radio station down here around me had a Southern Fried Rock for all of Thanksgiving Day. And
Bet that was fun.
well, of course I didn't. I didn't listen to it because it's funny because I don't even like pulling that much country into my rock.
Yeah, I think like what you'd mentioned about guys doing spillover songs like Kid Rock and stuff, kind of like is Jackson, Mississippi, and what's the new one he's got? It kind of sounds like Werewolves of London. Can't think of the name of the song.
Yeah, where he actually rips off the riff to Werewolves of London. Yeah. Summertime something.
Yeah, something, and you know, when I look at those one-offs and stuff, it's kind of like, that's fun. You know, that's kind of cool. But like you said, when you're talking about making a genre out of it, you know, I am a huge Leonard Skinner fan. I love listening to them, to 38 Special. Yeah, and you know, I think it kind of goes back to we're going to really be dating ourselves, but it was either Livestock 2 or 3 that we went to, and I saw them live, and to watch the two guitar players bounce off each other and you know where each other is in the solo and kind of go back and forth, and the presentation, obviously it wasn't, you know, the original lead singer, but it was his brother at that time, and seeing them live kind of touched a spark in me, and I started listening to a lot of stuff. And I you know, as a side note, if Give Me 3 Steps comes on the radio, it's up and I'm singing every word to it. So,
and see, I appreciate that, but that literally falls into that category of pointless.
I knew there would be a point where you and I would
and it's not even a clash. I respect Leonard Skinner like I respect Garth Brooks. What they did, what they brought to the table, and don't even try and lie, because if I say the word Freebird, you know where I'm going.
Look, I will still listen to it. I'm serious. Again, you know, we're a little bit diverse in this area. We separate a little bit in older country, and you know, up even to the 90s. I've got a lot more affinity for the actual music than you do. And
sure,
it's understandable, but you know, we're certainly in line from the early mid 90s on, because I can't. There's very few songs, you know, that I could possibly stomach from those eras. But when we get to the older stuff, I'm a lot more into it than you were. I mean,
absolutely.
When I can sit and watch Chet Atkins play guitar, it blows my mind. And you know, even
wait, I'll give you two things right now, or one real quick, but and I can see his face, and I'm drawing a blank on his name. The guy from Hee Haw,
Buck Owens and yeah, the other guy.
Is it Buck?
I'll look it up. You go ahead.
Is it Buck Owens? The guitar player. He did he usually played banjo, but he was almost like a comedian. But
Roy Clark.
Roy Clark, yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Look up Roy Clark playing guitar.
Oh no, that both of them were amazing guitar players. That's what I said. I think maybe that's where it stems from. Maybe it stems from the fact that a lot of those earlier country guys, you know, were soloists in their rights, but it didn't fit a lot of their songs that they wrote, because they were writing story songs.
Right, but Roy Clark was like a classically trained guitar player.
Oh,
like, yep. I mean, like insane.
Mm-hmm. And you know, again, you know, I go back to Leonard Skinner as yes, I will listen. I've even started digging into old, you know, B-side stuff of theirs recently to find some really good, you know, well-written songs, and they were one of those ones that kind of veered away from that country attitude on like half of their stuff.
Sure.
I'm going to say like half of it was, you know, I'm you know, I got a truck, I'm going to, you know, go out and into the fields and pick corn, do whatever. And half of them weren't, though. Half of them were stories about, you know, a guy that played guitar. I can't think of the name of the song now. They were talking about a guy that played blues guitar in downtown, a homeless guy or something. Fantastic, amazing song. Love it. It stuck with me. And I've got a more affinity for that older stuff than you do. But
See, I think "Simple Man" I think was one of their best written songs, and it's really, really, really overplayed. But I still think that's one of the best songs.
But that is still, it's about a country mom saying to her kid to do this and telling him the ideals that country or that.
Right, the simple basics.
Right,
be a simple man.
But said in a country way. So
sure. The other thing I wanted to argue real quick, not argue, a lot of people, and I agree, 85%. Because you touched on them briefly earlier, is the Eagles. I think they're probably 75% country roots too. I mean, if you listen to a lot of their songs, there's a lot of country influence in the Eagles.
Yeah, is it Already Gone?
Already Gone. I mean, there's banjo. I mean, there is heavy banjo in that song. There's a lot of their songs that's country influence until it got into the, late 70s. I mean, even Hotel California is.
I mean, look at like Bob Seger. I mean, you could probably say half of his stuff is country. We got Tonight, Against the Wind.
Yeah, I mean, country influence, yes. I don't know about Bob Seger's pretty much rock and roll.
Well, yes, but still,
but the Eagles, you could make a case for, I would say 70% of their songs are having country influence.
I think their genre is actually country. When you look at like where they're stuck, where they're put in the racks, going back to the old days of actually buying CDs in the racks.
Right.
So
it would be hard to classify them as rock because, I mean, there's a lot of...
it's funny, Wikipedia actually lists them as rock. But
the Eagles?
Yeah, but I would agree with you. There's really a lot of heavy, a country influence.
A good friend of mine always argued that. He said, well, you love the Eagles, and that's closer to country than any, And because I know we had touched on them numerous times, even in these past podcasts that...
Well... Yeah, and it's like I said, it's. I think it's subject matter again. I think they don't really dip into the country attitude, and again, it's kind of personal for us to not be interested in that. But the Eagles really don't dip a lot into that attitude and idea of country living and stuff. So,
right.
I'm gonna give you some quick highlights of the 25 classic country singers and see if we can just maybe pick one or two, and obviously Hank Williams Sr. is going to be number one.
Incredibly talented guy.
Yeah,
I mean, without knowing a lot of his catalog, what I have heard, I mean, and seeing some of the old and Dad still listens to him, and when he's out in the garage, and that's basically the only. Influence I have of him, because I don't seek that out, and that's by my own fault, I guess. But I think the guy, obviously, I mean, he started he's a patriarch or whatever of a family, of a bloodline that's what Hank Williams III now has,
right.
Music, I guess we'll call it, out now, and I've heard some of that, and wow, you talk about going, I mean, that rolls downhill, but anyway.
Well, I mean, if you look at songs like "I'm So Lonesome I Could Die," "Your Cheating Heart," I mean, those are
they're staples in that. I don't know how else to put it. They're pillars of that genre.
Yeah,
really.
So if you had to guess who number 2 was, who do you think it would be?
As far as best or what
classic country singers?
Classic country singers, probably Patsy Cline would have to be somewhere in there.
Johnny Cash made number 2.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, again, he was a storyteller, and actually started out doing a lot of, classic gospel and Christian type music before he actually started, moving into that almost country genre. And but yeah, he made number 2.
That's believable.
Totally respect that man right there.
Yeah, as far as but I mean, he became. I don't know. Iconic. I mean, I think, he's iconic. I mean, I think, and I'll say this, rock people wanted him to be
a bad guy.
You know, yeah, they wanted him to be a rock. They wanted that persona. Because the Folsom Prison thing, and they wanted him, he was rebel country. I mean, he's what started that feel towards the end, he didn't want to be pigeonholed. He just wanted to make music that he liked to listen to,
right?
And I think that was part of it, but it just happened to be country, and I utmost respect, and I'm not in awe of the guy. I mean, as far as the music, but I'm in awe of the guy's capabilities and presence and what he brought. He brought a lot of people from all walks of life to music in general.
Right.
And I firmly believe, like you said, he started off in gospel, and by the end he was covering Nine Inch Nails. So I mean, that's a big deal.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of run down the list. Any stick out, you can jump in afterwards.
Okay.
Merle Haggard, Waylon Jennings, George Jones, a lot of females at the time, individuals. Dolly Parton, Loretta Lynn, a lot of females kind of sticking out and making a name for themselves. Glenn Campbell, Patsy Cline. We talked about Patsy Cline.
Right.
Porter Wagner. It's kind of about it. I mean, of the big ones, Glenn Campbell, Chris Christopherson, which. Yeah, he was kind of a fringe guy, but yeah. So Gene Autry, I mentioned him earlier, but yeah, that's early stuff. But any of those stick out to you, or you?
George Jones sticks out, but now these are country. What was the genre? What did you say? What was the list again?
Top 25 classic country singers.
Classic country singers.
Yeah.
See that? Well, I guess. What do you consider classic country? Because I think George Strait should be on that list.
Yeah,
if George Jones is on that list.
Yeah, he's kind of that bleed over. I mean, I guess they're looking way back, and
I guess
they even mention in his little short bio that he left the genre in the 70s and didn't come back till the 90s. So he might have been part of the really early club of that. And yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Dolly Parton, I think I really don't know what the appeal is. I get it.
She's a writer, man. I'll tell you right now.
Oh yeah, no,
I've got the same respect for her that I got for Garth Brooks in writing most of their own music or other people's music.
But see, I guess I tend to I hear things differently. I guess because when you're talking about the top classic country singers, now Loretta Lynn, I would, yeah. I mean, that falls into that
coal miner's
classic
daughter.
Country singer. Yeah. I mean, but I don't know if we're talking about record sales or if we're talking about voice presence or
it's more just a
popularity contest.
If you type in top blank, it's gonna spit out a bunch of. I just kind of went to one that was. I didn't want to go to 100 greatest hits, and I didn't want to do 10. I wanted to just kind of get a good sampling of it, and
right.
There's a Rolling Stones 100 that's just I'm scrolling through it going, I don't recognize any of these people. It could be because I don't listen to the genre very much, but there's
right.
some people I just don't. I don't even recognize the name. But people like Marty Robbins, he didn't make that list, but man,
wow.
or the Statler brothers.
Right?
Yeah. So
Alabama's
on there, yeah, on this 100 list,
Yeah.
But people like Vince Gill and Dwight Yoakam and stuff like that. So.
Well, sure. But it's funny you said because I googled just for spite.
Mm-hmm.
I brought Google up and I typed in stupid and I typed in space and I typed in C and the first thing was stupid country songs. And there's
you've searched that before, haven't you?
No, I hadn't. But it came up, and there's a list dating back to 2004. Every year, some website releases the top 20 stupid country songs that are popular that are pointless, from Watermelon Crawl to Red Solo Cup.
That was a popular song, though, man. It might be stupid.
No. That's what the list was.
Oh,
songs
okay.
that were wildly popular, sold tons of albums, were completely stupid. That Badonkey Donk.
Oh yeah,
and that's what I said. But there is a list, a yearly list compiled of songs that, and that's where you and I don't think we differ that much, but that's where it falls. Then it gets into almost like and I'm not changing my tone, but it falls into a level of disrespect for me, because I appreciate music. Means so much to me that I that's why I don't like country music, because it seems like they're disrespecting the music itself by just trying to be popular or making money or whatever. And that it seems to be country music is the biggest genre for that. And there are a huge amount of exceptions. You just named a list of people that are exceptions to that. And I've said before, there are extremely talented singer, songwriter, performers, musicians in that genre. But when you popularize, and it's hard for me to respect Toby Keith when he's done a lot of good things, and that Trace Atkins that did the Badonkey Donk thing. Yeah, those guys are like big donations to the Wounded Warrior projects, and they do great things for veterans and stuff like that. But it's hard for me to respect their musical prowess, because what got them there is something that I think is horribly unacceptable.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That sounds bad, but I don't know how else to put it. And that's what that was always my disdain for country music was what makes them popular, or what gets them there is something that I don't want. I don't know how. And it's bled into this bro country thing of Florida Georgia Line, and where it's sort of rap, and this Jason Aldean and things of that nature that I get even these I digress. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but
well, no, I think, but you're going to tie right into my parting shot. We're kind of getting close to time, and I don't want to stretch that. You and I could talk about this for decades.
Absolutely.
But I think I'll tie it into my parting shot for you,
okay.
and it's going to tie in basically directly to what you said, and this is what we kind of do is I finish out with a parting shot and give you a mind blower that you can kind of absorb and spit out. But Billy Ray Cyrus.
He was number one on the first list I looked at.
That doesn't surprise me.
The only thing the man is known for is a mullet and one of the dumbest songs ever written, as far as this man is concerned. That's purely opinion.
But it sold so many albums.
And that's exactly what that's exactly what I was literally just talking about.
I know, exactly. That's why when you started on it, I'm like, yeah, it's going to make my parting shot really good.
Yeah, and I'm not joking. He was number one or number two. I think Red Solo Cup was number one on the list of the first list I looked at. I think it was like 2014 or whatever, but it was right. It's right up the, and that things like that, things like Achy Breaky Heart, and the ones that bother me, Boot Scoot Boogie,
that Brooks and Dunn?
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're wildly, hugely popular. And like I said, the one I always went to was She Thinks My Tractor's Sexy. I think and it's impossible for me to get past certain songs, certain artists, to have any kind of respect or any kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, any kind, I guess respect is the only word that would fit. I don't understand how that can be popular, but people tell me that things I listen, oh, you can't understand what they're saying. Well, you know what? I understand what he's saying. I don't want to.
Right.
You know what
Well,
I mean?
I mean, let's talk Billy Ray Cyrus real quick. This would be kind of the runoff here.
Go ahead.
After Achy Breaky Heart, can you tell me how many other songs he had that peaked at #1 in the U.S. country charts?
I would say 0.
Yeah, 0. You're right. Okay, now how many peaked in the top 25?
He may have had 1.
4.
Really?
Nope, 5. Oh, I'm sorry. If you count the 2007 one where he sings with his daughter, it's 6.
Oh, well.
She might have drug him into that.
Yeah.
But I, to tie it all up, we see a little bit different than eye to eye on the older stuff, and I've actually done a lot of listening to a lot of the older stuff, the old Merle Haggard stuff and Waylon Jennings and stuff, and I still love to just put that on and listen to a rotation. And I know that's not your bag, and but when it comes to the '90s, we're certainly in line with it. I can't. There's very, very little I can put on and listen to. Dad will call us every once in a while and say, check out this song, it's really a touching song, and I'll listen to it, and the words are like, that's pretty good. But, then I'll put that same person on and listen to like a rotation on Pandora or something. I'm going to go,
and lose interest fast. Yeah.
Seriously, this is what country is today?
Yeah.
Hank Williams Sr. would probably roll even at listening to his son's music at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Well, I wanted to close with my biggest argument with country music or country music fans is they always tell me, like you just said, Dad will call, you have to listen to this song, or if you heard this song or heard this artist, you would change your mind. And they think they have to convince me that it's good or whatever, when it's not about, it's music. You and I know this, music is opinion based and it's a feel thing. Mm-hmm. But if I say the same thing, if you just listen to this song, and I did it with my wife not too long ago. I played One World by Anthrax. I said, listen to the lyrics. And she's like, wow, that's, that's 85 or 87. And that's still, right on, right today, right on with politics and the world and everything else. And I said, yeah. And I said, would you listen to that regularly? He's like, no, because the rest of their stuff it's really loud and it's really scary. And, and I said, well, that's the point. You want me to listen to country. You want me to, you won't give what moves me a chance. So trying to convince me that what you like, I should, swap to that or give that more of a chance. That's the part that I've always argued with country fans is there's no give or take. And it's easier to go from country to rock than rock to country. And that'll always be my argument, because country stars, they get a little heavier, or put a little pop into it or put a little rock into it. And I think it sells more. Countries or rock and roll stars are a specific genre of, like you say, Leonard Skinner, even the Eagles. I mean, they're exceptions, but I mean, when you add country influence to your rock, you lose a lot more fan base a lot faster than when country adds rock to their genre. They pick up a lot more fans than when rock goes the other way. And that's always been my argument is, I guess it boils down to a simple popularity contest,
Yeah.
You don't like us and we don't like you.
Yeah, exactly. And it'll probably stay that way for ages, unfortunately.
I don't think it's ever going to, I don't think it'll ever change. There's always going to be people that like country and not rock and vice versa. So,
well, thanks for hanging out again, brother. We've got the email out there. If you guys want to send us some, questions, concerns, your input on it, musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com. Still looking around at possibly getting this out on iTunes, but looking at some other options. But if you guys have any questions, concerns, throw them at us, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another one. Thanks, brother.
Absolutely. No, this was a fun one. I enjoyed this. Yeah, and check out our Facebook pages, Craig Seibert and George Seibert, Sybert. Search us out. and check the link and let us know what you think. I mean, share the link, let some of your other friends argue about it, and let us know what they think too.
Perfect. Thanks, brother. Have a good one.
Yep. Talk to you later.
Yep. See ya.